welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey there.
So our mission today basically is to unpack a whole stack of sources. We've got some fascinating stuff happening right now across tech, business.
Yeah, really dynamic shifts. We're talking AI coding startups, crypto IPOs, even some pretty intense drama between tech giants and politics.
And gaming hardware too, don't forget that.
Right. So think of this as maybe your shortcut, getting you up to speed on some of the key facts, the insights we pulled from, all the latest news and discussions.
Exactly. We're trying to get beyond just the headlines and figure out why this stuff actually matters. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it. Let's unpack this.
Okay, so let's start with AI. Specifically, how it's shaking up something pretty fundamental, like writing code. We looked at a company called Cursor, or rather, its parent company, AnySphere.
Yeah, AnySphere. And the details in the sources were pretty striking.
Striking is definitely the word. I mean, the numbers reported,
Yeah.
they're kind of wild, right? AnySphere valued at, what, $9.9 billion?
Almost 10 billion. And it's only like 3 years old?
And pulling in supposedly $500 million a year in revenue. Already.
Those numbers, yeah, they really grab your attention. But what I found maybe even more interesting was the vision behind it.
Okay.
The sources quoted the CEO, and the goal isn't just, the cash. They see this capital as fuel to, and this is a quote, invent a very new way to build software.
A new way.
Aiming for something that's a much higher level and more productive, a whole new style of programming, maybe in the next 5 years or so. They're pouring money into what they call frontier AI coding research.
Wow. Okay. So not just making current coding faster, but actually trying to fundamentally change the game using AI. That's a big swing.
It really is.
How are they doing that? Like technically, what's under the hood, according to the sources?
Right. So the tech approach seems key. They power Cursor with what they call an ensemble of models.
An ensemble meaning?
It means they're pulling in APIs from the big guys, Anthropic, Gemini, OpenAI, which you'd kind of expect.
Yeah.
But, and this seems critical, they also rely really heavily on their own custom models, developed in-house.
Custom models?
Yeah.
Okay, why does that matter? And how heavily are we talking?
Well, the sources actually gave a number, which is fascinating. Over 500 million model calls per day.
500 million?
Mm-hmm.
On their own models?
Yeah, and the CEO's point was that this ensemble mixing the big external models with their specialized internal ones, that's what turns it from just a cool demo into a genuinely useful AI product for pros.
Right. It needs that reliability, the speed, the context for real work.
Exactly.
So who's using this then? Is it still just individual devs kicking the tires?
It started there, sure, but the growth story, according to these reports, is more and more about bigger companies jumping in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they apparently just announced they're serving over half the Fortune 500.
Half the Fortune 500. Wow. Any names mentioned?
Yeah, names like NVIDIA, Adobe, Uber were listed.
Okay, that's some serious enterprise traction. Fast. How are they selling it to these big players? Is it just the same product?
Well, the business model is subscription-based. And they specifically have $40 subscriptions for businesses. So that signals a clear upmarket motion, targeting enterprise.
Makes sense. And are they looking to get acquired by one of the big AI labs or?
Apparently not. The sources suggest that despite interest from, the OpenAI or Anthropic scale companies, the founders feel like they were made for this opportunity. They want to build an independent company and seem genuinely energized by where the product is going.
Okay, so stepping back.
Yeah.
An AI coding tool hitting this kind of valuation, getting into half the Fortune 500, what does that signal to you if you're, say, a developer or maybe even someone less technical?
Well, I think it suggests this shift in how software gets built. It might be happening even faster than we thought.
Right.
It's not just AI helping developers anymore. These tools could potentially change the whole workflow.
It's a more productive pros.
Yeah, definitely raising the ceiling for the experts, making them way more productive. But also, and this is interesting, it could lower the floor too.
Lower the floor.
Making it easier for, less technical people, product managers, designers, maybe even executives to actually build things, automate tasks, experiment with code in a way they couldn't before.
Empowering both ends of the spectrum. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so sticking with tech reshaping things, let's pivot from code to finance. Crypto, stablecoins. The sources covered the recent Circle IPO.
Yes, Circle. And that was quite something, wasn't it? The reports said they raised nearly $1.1 billion.
And the demand was huge. The offering was, what, significantly oversubscribed?
Maybe 25 times oversubscribed, yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact the stock actually jumped after the offering was called a pleasant surprise, which tells you something about market expectations, maybe.
Definitely suggests strong appetite. There's an interesting bit from an investor explaining why they got in early years ago. Something about a dinner.
Right. Yeah, they mentioned being at this dinner, regulators there, crypto experts, and Circle kept coming up really positively.
Why? What was the sentiment?
Basically, Circle was seen as the grown-up in the room.
Aha, the grown-up.
Yeah, because they were US-based, really focused on regulatory compliance from the start, in a space that often felt like the Wild West.
Okay, so playing the long game on regulation.
That plus having apparently the best of the best engineers building the actual tech. So a mix of regulatory savvy and serious engineering chops.
And it sounds like the timing worked out well, with government starting to make more positive noises about stablecoins recently.
Absolutely. The reports mention that this feeling of finally some support from governments really helped the mood music for the IPO, made the timing feel right.
So what's the bigger picture here? What does Circle's success mean for, say, big traditional banks looking at crypto?
Well, the suggestion in the sources is that for those major financial firms, the easiest, maybe the only viable path into crypto right now might be the stablecoin route. Meaning partnering with platforms like Circle, because Circle already has the infrastructure, the network effects, and crucially, that broad regulatory footprint that big regulated institutions absolutely need.
All right, they can't just dive in without that compliance piece. And that investor who got in early, are they cashing out now?
Nope. They confirmed they're holding onto their shares, both the IPO equity and their earlier private stakes.
Okay, holding strong. So putting this into context for you listening, Circle's big IPO success, the better regulatory vibe, this isn't just niche crypto news anymore, is it?
Not at all. It really suggests stablecoins might be moving towards becoming, a much more integrated piece of the mainstream financial system.
Which could change how you move money, store value.
Exactly. How money moves globally, how value is stored digitally, maybe even how your own bank starts interacting with digital assets. It feels like a pretty significant step in that direction.
Okay, from the future of finance, let's pivot again to something that definitely made headlines.
Yeah.
The messy intersection of tech giants, politics, and the markets. Specifically, that very public spat between Elon Musk and President Trump.
Oh boy, yeah, that was something. The reports traced it back to Musk criticizing Trump's tax bill, the big, beautiful bill.
Right. And Trump's initial reaction was just surprise, disappointment.
Initially, yeah. But then it really blew up. Trump claimed Musk was mad about EV incentives being cut.
Which Musk denied, saying he's always been against subsidies.
Exactly. And then it got personal. Trump calling Musk crazy, claiming he kicked him out of the administration. And Musk, well, he fired back.
And the markets noticed, Tesla took a hit.
A big hit. The sources called it Tesla's worst week since February of 2025, wiped out $40 billion in market cap.
$40 billion in a week. Ouch.
And on one specific day, Thursday, the stock dropped 14%.
Wow. So that's the market clearly reacting to the political drama. What were analysts saying about the actual implications for Tesla's business from this feud?
Well, one big theory highlighted was the potential impact on robotaxi.
How so?
The argument was that, look, part of the whole investment case for robotaxi was built on the idea that Musk's closeness to the president, or perceived closeness, would lead to favorable federal rules or policy.
So the public fight kind of blew up that assumption.
Yeah, pretty much. Cast serious doubt on it, and investor sentiment definitely soured because of that connection, or now the lack of it.
Were there other factors mentioned?
Yeah, beyond robotaxi, just general market sentiment. Sources mentioned some reports of people in Europe being incredibly angry about Musk's political comments, which, could theoretically hurt sales there. That's hard to quantify.
Right.
But interestingly, there was also some chatter that maybe China cracking down on BYD could actually open up space for Tesla in China, possibly offsetting some negativity elsewhere.
Complex dynamics. What about from an investment perspective? Buy the dip on the drama or stay away?
Mixed views, as you'd expect.
Right.
One angle was that the market was basically betting against Musk himself because of the volatility, the histrionics.
The drama factor.
Right. But another analysis suggested, look, the fundamentals for Tesla might ultimately trump this issue. So maybe the volatility creates an entry point. It was noted that Musk kind of has a habit of teetering on the edge of destruction and then pulling himself back.
But
also that he often shoots himself in the foot with the public drama and maybe needs to dial down the rhetoric.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. But okay, this wasn't just about Tesla. SpaceX got pulled in directly.
It absolutely did. Trump threatened to end Musk's federal contracts. That was called a direct hit on SpaceX.
And Musk threatened to pull the Dragon spacecraft from NASA.
He did, briefly, before walking it back.
Why is pulling Dragon such a big deal for NASA? I mean, surely they have other options.
Apparently not, really. The sources were clear. Dragon is the primary way NASA sends people and supplies to the ISS right now.
Primary way.
Yeah. As one report put it bluntly, without it, we cannot staff the space station very well. And crucially, there's basically no backup here.
No backup. Seriously.
Getting people up there reliably without Dragon, it's just not happening for many years from now, according to the sources. The only other possibility is maybe Russia's Soyuz, and that comes with its own whole set of geopolitical issues and isn't ideal.
Wow, so this political fight has real consequences for, like, keeping the lights on at the space station.
Pretty much. And it ripples out further, right, to overall space policy. Things like the Artemis moon program, getting to Mars.
How so?
Well, Starship launches need FAA approval, and the sources noted, bluntly, the FAA guy works for Mr. Trump. So Trump could potentially say no more of that for Starship, or block its use for government moon missions, or deny funding for Mars stuff. Huge leverage.
So in this power struggle, did anyone seem to come out on top?
One analysis suggested maybe Mr. Trump seems to have won the immediate fight just because of the potential hit to Musk's company cash flow, especially SpaceX's reliance on those contracts. But the bigger picture, as noted widely, is that they kind of need each other. The government needs the private partners like SpaceX for capabilities, and companies like Tesla and SpaceX need friendly regulations and government business. It's really interdependent.
While all this was going on, what did someone like, say, Rivian CEO think, another EV player?
Yeah, the Rivian CEO weighed in, calling the whole thing dynamic. They pointed out that Musk has actually lobbied against things like EV credits and loans.
Things that Rivian probably needs.
Exactly. Things that are important to Rivian, especially as they're building new factories like the one in Georgia, which happens to be a key swing state.
Interesting. So Rivian's just keeping its head down and focusing on its own strategy.
Seems like it. Their focus, as highlighted, is on U.S. investment, U.S. tech. They mentioned their software deal with VW and U.S. Jobs, noting they have over 15,000 employees. They're talking to the administration about building a new U.S. company.
Just trying to appeal broadly.
Yeah, the CEO mentioned their customers are Republicans and Democrats, suggesting the brand resonates across the aisle. They even noted seeing more identify as Rivian bumper stickers popping up.
The bumper sticker index.
Yeah.
Okay. And the feud also brought up the national debt again, didn't it? Tied back to that tax bill.
It did. The whole big, beautiful bill discussion sort of circled back to the deficit. And some see Musk as trying to spotlight government spending, questioning things like funding universities with huge endowments, and calling $37 trillion in debt nothing short of suicidal.
Okay, so when you really unpack this whole situation, it's way more than just a Twitter fight.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a perfect storm showing how tech leadership, business strategy, politics, market value, even vital national programs like space, they're all tangled together now. The drama isn't just drama. It has real, tangible impacts.
Okay, let's shift gears completely. From that high-stakes political tech drama down to consumer tech.
Yeah.
And something people were really, really waiting for, the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah, the excitement for that was huge based on the sources. The wait was long, and the launch lines were apparently insane, around blocks and blocks.
I saw that story about the guy who waited outside the New York store since April.
Yeah, getting pizza delivered and everything. Crazy dedication. He even got the first one handed to him by the Nintendo of America president.
That's commitment. Okay, so it costs $450. What are the main hardware upgrades people are talking about?
Well, it's described as bigger with better graphics. The screen is larger, though. Importantly, it's not OLED, which is a bit of a disappointment for some.
Okay. What else?
A cool detail mentioned was the new magnetic Joy-Cons. Instead of the old rails, they just snap on magnetically. Described as pretty cool and really strong.
Interesting. Anything else practical?
Yeah, a small but solid new feature, a screen lock with a PIN code, finally some basic security.
Good addition.
Yeah.
What about the horsepower? What's powering it?
It's running on a custom NVIDIA chip, and that allows for some pretty significant boosts.
Right.
Higher resolutions, up to 4K when it's docked, 1080p handheld, and smoother frame rates, apparently hitting up to 120 frames per second in some cases.
Okay, so definitely a noticeable performance jump for visuals and smoother play. What about the games? What do the sources say about the launch lineup?
Mario Kart World seems to be the big headliner for launch.
Makes sense.
And they also have refreshed versions of huge Switch 1 hits, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, specifically updated to show off what the faster NVIDIA chip can do.
Good way to showcase the power. Anything else coming?
A new Donkey Kong game is expected too, but there was also a sense noted that some people felt a little disappointed with the launch slate of games.
Oh, wow.
Just that it's not very big. The feeling is Nintendo really needs to flesh that out over the next year.
Okay, fair enough. How important is this launch for Nintendo as a company, like business-wise?
Oh, it's massive. It's hard to overstate it, really. The sources emphasize that almost all of its revenue comes from this one product, the Switch platform and its games.
Almost all. Wow.
Yeah. The original Switch was such a smash hit since 2017, it drove Nintendo's stock to all-time highs. So now literally everything is riding on the Switch 2, keeping the trend going.
Because they don't have a backup plan.
Exactly. The sources bluntly said Nintendo has no plan B for its core gaming business. Sure, they do movies, theme parks, stores, but those are described as basically a funding error compared to the games division.
A funding error.
Oh.
Ouch. Okay, so how does the original Switch's success compare historically for Nintendo?
It's huge. Its sales are getting really close to Nintendo's best-selling console ever, the Nintendo DS, which sold 154 million units. The Switch is at 152 million.
Whoa. So the Switch 2 needs to basically match one of the best-selling consoles of all time just to keep pace.
Pretty much. It's a very high hurdle, as the sources put it. No pressure at all, right? It needs to keep selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, no kidding. So given those huge stakes, what's the take on Nintendo's strategy with the Switch 2? Are they reinventing the wheel?
The consensus seems to be not really. Some sources described it as Nintendo playing it pretty safe.
Safe how?
It's seen as, kind of the same thing, but just a little bit bigger and better. An evolution, not a revolution like, say, the Wii was.
But maybe that's smart.
Well, yeah. The view is that this strategy reflects decades of corporate lessons learned, probably avoiding mistakes like the Wii U. And considering the whole games industry has been having a tough time lately, maybe a safer bet is a good bet.
Right. Don't mess too much with a winning formula when the stakes are this high.
Exactly.
So for you listening, whether you're a gamer or just watching the tech world, the Switch 2 launch is a great case study. It shows that balancing act between iterating, meeting huge expectations, and just keeping the core business thriving.
Totally. Now, let's go from that huge global console launch to something completely different. A tiny single-seat electric car, priced around $7,000, and it's apparently a hit in Japan.
Okay, this sounds fascinating. A $7,000 single-seat EV. Tell me more. KG Motors Mio.
That's the one, KG Motors Mio. And yeah, the reports describe it as tiny. Only one seat. It's not even 1.5 meters tall. Super compact.
And the specs are probably pretty basic.
Yeah, modest. Top speed is only 60 kilometers per hour, so just under 40 miles per hour. And it takes about 5 hours to charge.
Okay, so definitely not for long commutes or highways. Why is this appealing specifically in Japan?
Well, a couple of things. EVs generally are still kind of rare there compared to other places. But there's this growing demand for super compact cars.
Why compact?
It links back to Japan's demographics and aging, shrinking population. So maybe more elderly drivers who want something small and easy to handle. Plus, Japan has tons of narrow streets, especially outside big cities.
Ah, okay. So it fits a specific physical environment and user need.
Right. And the price is obviously huge. At around $7,000, it's roughly half the price of Japan's most popular EV, which is the Nissan Sakura.
Half the price. Okay, that's compelling, but you said it's a hit. Like selling well.
Surprisingly well, yeah. According to the sources, KG Motors is actually on track to sell more of its EVs in Japan than the world's biggest car maker, Toyota, is selling domestically this year.
Wait, hang on. This tiny startup with a slow single-seat car might outsell Toyota's entire domestic EV lineup in Japan in 2024.
That's what the report suggests. They've already pre-sold more than half of the 3,300 Mius they plan to make over the next 2 years. Toyota, meanwhile, only sold just over 2,000 EVs domestically in Japan in 2024 so far.
That is genuinely surprising.
Wow, it really is. It just shows how focusing laser sharp on a specific local need, the right form factor, the right price, it can lead to unexpected success, even against global behemoths.
Yeah, so for you listening, it's a great reminder, right? Tech success isn't always about global scale or peak performance. Sometimes it's just about perfectly nailing what a specific group needs. right where they need it.
Exactly. Building for a niche, but nailing it.
Okay, that tiny EV story is a fantastic contrast. Let's use it to kind of broaden out for our last main point. Something that touches on a lot of these threads. The bigger discussion around AI, its impact on jobs, the future of work. This came up across a few sources.
Yeah, and it's clearly a topic with a lot of apprehension around it. The sources definitely reflected that. One big concern mentioned was the uneven adoption of AI. You know, the classic, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed idea.
Uneven adoption, meaning some people, some companies benefit way more than others.
Precisely. Who adopts AI first will have potentially a much bigger advantage, whether that's companies getting a competitive edge or even whole countries. So there's this question about ensuring everyone has a chance to use this technology, making sure it's kind of equally distributed.
And then there's the really direct fear, jobs.
Right. The sources pointed to the potential for these AI tools to do tasks currently done by humans incredibly effectively, specifically mentioning existing entry-level jobs and clerk-level skills. That's where a lot of the anxiety lies.
But it's not all negative, right? AI is also seen as a tool for progress.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's also framed very positively as a way to accelerate progress, to fundamentally improve how businesses operate, how people work, moving beyond just like proofs of concept.
Was there any nuance to that optimism? Any downsides mentioned, even with acceleration?
There was one interesting note of caution about a potential loss of serendipity.
Loss of serendipity.
Yeah, the idea that as AI gets really good at connecting dots and streamlining things based on tons of data, maybe we lose some of those unexpected discoveries or creative sparks that come from, messier human interaction.
Huh. Interesting thought. But it sounds like the core question still hangs in the air.
Yeah, the big one. Is artificial intelligence going to take my job? Next year, 5 years, 10 years from now? And the honest answer from the sources seems to be simply, we just don't know as of yet.
Still too early to tell for sure.
Yeah.
So navigating this uncertainty, what's the main challenge we need to tackle?
The really hard challenge that we all have to figure out, according to the sources, is how to do it in a way that's safe, secure, and privacy-preserving. That came up repeatedly.
Safety, security, privacy, the big three.
Yeah. And it kind of brings us full circle, doesn't it? We started with AI writing code. Some sources even speculate about robots, building robots in the future. It's that recursive potential of the technology.
Right. So when you think about this uneven adoption, the potential impact on entry-level roles, the absolute need for safety and privacy, this conversation directly impacts your professional life, the whole economy around you.
Absolutely. It's definitely something we all need to be thinking about as this tech keeps evolving and weaving itself into, well, everything.
So quite a journey today. We went from AI potentially rewriting how we write software
to a tiny electric car outselling Toyota in Japan.
Witness the market chaos when tech leadership and politics collide, impacting even space travel.
And ended up pondering the huge, still uncertain future of work in the age of AI.
It really highlights the sheer variety of innovation, doesn't it? You've got stuff driven by massive research investment, stuff driven by hyper-local needs, stuff tangled up in global politics, stuff just trying to meet basic consumer demand.
It's happening at so many different scales, pushed by such different forces.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In a world changing this fast on so many fronts.
Yeah.
How do you even decide where to focus your attention just to stay informed, let alone try to get ahead?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But maybe exploring these different pieces like we did today, looking through these sources, is part of how you start to build that bigger picture.
Well, that wraps up this deep dive for us, pulling together threads from this latest stack of sources.
Yeah, we hope exploring these different angles gave you some valuable insights, maybe a few aha moments along the way.
Definitely keep thinking about these topics, keep asking questions, and, keep learning.
Until the next deep dive.